Namaste everyone. Welcome to polarization classes, physics class, and in that we have studied polarization. So I want to brush up everything that we have studied in polarization in the video classes by just having some few animations and videos in PPT. Then we will finish. That finishes the wave optics and with the one or two easy problems related to polarization. We don't have tough problems in polarization. So shall we move? We will have some pictures and animations regarding this. So, light is a transverse wave. That's why it can be polarized, right? Light contains a combination of electric and magnetic fields. Now, if the electric fields are represented by some blue lines, say, then the magnetic fields are represented by red lines, say, then these fields are continuously changing with time. Simply, they are shown by writing arrow marks. But electric fields are not like arrow marks. Since it is a vector, it is shown as arrow mark here. So at a point when the light moves, the electric field and the magnetic fields are not constant with time. They will be continuously varying. Remember here, the electric and magnetic fields are continuously changing with the time, and they are in phase. What do you mean by they are in phase? The point where electric field is 0, you get magnetic field also 0. The point where electric field grows to the maximum value, the magnetic field also grows to the maximum value. Here, one set of electric field and magnetic field are shown. Suppose you have one electric field in this direction, there is a magnetic field in this direction. If there is one electric field in this direction, there is a magnetic field in this direction. But every moment, at every point, electric field and magnetic fields will be continuously changing with time, and that continuous change makes the light to move. And all our radio signals, video signals that we generate and transmit to the satellite and receive it back in our modern communication system, all are created accordingly. So we create high frequency electric and magnetic fields which are changing with time. The frequency means number of times that changes with time, and that is sent into the space. As the magnetic field varies, as the electric field varies, they can travel in the space. Because for example, if you take magnetic field, one magnetic field grows and it starts falling down, and that means it collapses. And by that time, the second magnetic field grows and it repels the first magnetic field. So in this way, the electromagnetic wave propagates in air or free space. So if there is no changing that nature for electric and magnetic field, there could not have been any electromagnetic wave. For example, every molecule in water keeps on vibrating up and down in its own way. So, but all the particles have the same frequency. So when one particle is at crest, another is at trough, another may be at mean position. But when the particle at mean position goes to the trough, another particle goes to the mean position or trough. So in this way, every moment the particles will have different phase, different instant of motion. So that makes the ripple to move away and away. So we feel that the ripple is moving away from the generating point. Similarly, in light, it is electric and magnetic waves which are vibrating. We can't see them. But when the electric field falls on our retina, it creates some potentials, signals, and those signals enter into the brain and we feel the sensation of vision. So eye is the beautiful organ which can convert this electromagnetic wave into a picture. So whatever we receive from a picture is electromagnetic wave. That way electromagnetic wave sends the information or carries the information from the object, and that is decoded using eye. So retina, that signals. So the main signals which are responsible for the information carriage is, they are electric signals. So light is a combination of, beautiful combination of electric and magnetic fields, continuously changing with the time. At no point you can have electric and magnetic fields keeping rest, taking rest. They are continuously changing with time. But one thing is, electric and magnetic fields are very good friends. Wherever the electric field is very strong, magnetic field is very strong. Wherever the electric field grows to 0, magnetic field also grows to 0. So in the path of light, don't be under the impression that this is the only pair of electric and magnetic fields that it has got. Suppose the light is traveling like this in this direction, z direction, say, then there may be an electric field like this way also. There may be a magnetic field like this way also. So there may be many directions, but if I give many directions here, then it's a confusing one. So one set of electric field and magnetic field perpendicular to that are given. There may be another set of electric and magnetic fields which are perpendicular to each other. So this is how the light is assumed to be made up of, because we don't know actually. But if we assume it like this, we can explain many of the phenomena of light. So it is how it is explained here. But never think that this light is a steady electric and magnetic field like this. This is a photograph taken at a moment, right? Imaginary photograph taken at a moment. At this moment, the electric field is here maximum, magnetic field here is maximum. At this moment here, the electric field is negative maximum, magnetic field is negative maximum, something like this. Very next moment it changes. You can see it from this picture. Every moment at a point, suppose if I hold this cursor at a particular point, now it is maximum, now it is 0, negative maximum, 0, maximum, again 0, maximum, negative, again 0, positive maximum. So something like this. It keeps on changing, right? It is not a steady value. So this is a picture taken at a particular moment. So light can have electric and magnetic field. I can show it here. Suppose the light is entering like this. And if there is an electric field here like this, and this is a plane which is normal to the direction of propagation of wave, right? If the light is moving like this is a plane which is normal to the direction of propagation of wave. And here, if there is an electric field, there is a magnetic field. If there is an electric field here, there is a magnetic field. If there is an electric field here, there is a magnetic field. For this electric field, there is a magnetic field. So we say that electric field vibrations and magnetic field vibrations are in all the planes like this. Of course, these are found to be in the plane of this rectangular plane, but still, if you consider a plane like this, then it will be here, 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 everywhere. This is unpolarized light. So if you can imagine that this electric field is this one dark red line like this, and another electric field is like this, and another electric field is like this. So somewhat crossed electric field like this, somewhat this one, and there is an electric field like this direction, this red line. So all these are when made to pass through a Polaroid sheet or a polarizer. Polarizer has a special feature. All its molecules are arranged in a particular direction. So all the vibrations parallel to its molecular axis are absorbed, and the vibrations perpendicular to the molecular axis are allowed to pass through. So this is the molecular axis shown here. The lines in this crystal sheet, the molecular axis, pass axis is like this. Pass axis is the axis which is perpendicular to the molecular axis, where the vibrations are allowed to pass through, not absorbed. Along the molecular axis, they are absorbed. So vibration, this axis allows the vibrations to pass through, and it reaches. This is polarized light. Here you see electric field is like this, electric field is like this, electric field is like this. So all planes electric fields are found, but here it is only in one plane, right? So that is polarized light. And here it is shown with the different, simply an animation with the different colored lines. So there is an electric field along the blue direction. There is an electric field along green direction. There is an electric field along red direction. So different waves are shown with the blue color, green color, and red color. But which is allowed to pass through? So here the pass, this itself is the pass axis. So this is unpolarized light. Only those vibrations parallel to the pass axis are allowed to pass through. So you get a clearly polarized light. This is the plane of polarization, plane of vibration. And perpendicular to that, you will have plane of polarization. So in this direction, you have plane of polarization. This is the plane of vibration. So, so this is how the polarization occurs. And here also another demonstration. There is an electric field in the blue direction. There is an electric field in the red direction, but red direction is completely blocked. Blue direction is allowed to pass through. And if there is another analyzer which is perpendicular to this direction, then that is also blocked. So intensity here will be 0. So now you can do this experiment. Suppose you have a calculator which is spoiled already. What you can do is you can break it using a hammer. You break it. Here you get a sheet. That is a Polaroid sheet actually. And actually light coming from the letters typed in a calculator are polarized already. They contain vibrations only in a single plane. So they are not like ordinary light. In an ordinary light, there are vibrations in all the directions. But here this contains light coming from a Polaroid sheet, which is on the surface of this reading panel of the calculator. They cut the vibrations in one plane and they allow only the vibrations in a particular plane. Remove it, break it, and only that calculator which is spoiled. Don't purchase a new calculator and spoil it for this purpose, right? You take a spoiled calculator, break it, open it, and you will get a sheet here. And that sheet is pasted to a glass plate, and you can remove the glass plate along with the sheet, no problem. But be careful that the glass plate and sheet are very sharp. Now, if you take such sheets and if you can fold it like this. You can see here. In one direction, you see there is a light coming from the bottom portion. Suppose this is done on a table. From the table, some bright light is coming, right? But that bright light becomes dark when the two Polaroid sheets are, they are Polaroid sheets, not naturally available. Laboratory prepared sheets. The molecules are forcefully made to arrange in a particular axis. So we get Polaroid sheets. That sheet used in the cooling glass is a Polaroid sheet. It is not a glass. It is a Polaroid sheet. Okay. So when the pass axis of the two crystals are perpendicular, no light comes out of it, right? When the pass axis of the two crystals are parallel, maximum light comes out of it. Of course, the intensity of light decreases, but still you get maximum light. And when they are perpendicular, the light coming out is 0. The reason is the same thing happened here. One crystal allowed the light to pass through parallel to its axis. But when the pass axis of another crystal is perpendicular, it has blocked only those vibrations which are present here. So no light here. So that is the situation here. You can do this experiment by taking such two calculators, and you can open it, or even if you can, if you have only one calculator, open it and cut that sheet into two and do this experiment. You can see that very beautifully. So you can use this Polaroid sheets. One of the application of Polaroid sheets is to decrease the intensity of light coming into, for example, a vehicle, for example, aeroplane. In aeroplane windows and vehicle windows, we use Polaroid sheets. And you see in some chambers, if there is a glass chamber, we call it as one-way see-through glass, right? In vehicles, there is a one-way see-through glass. That means people from outside cannot identify who is inside, but a man from outside can see the person outside, person walking on the outside. But a person walking on the outside cannot see who is there inside the car. So one-way see-through glass. Actually, it depends on the amount of light coming from the two objects. If the outside person is emitting more light, a person sitting inside can see him through that glass. But the person inside the car is emitting not more light, so that is filtered already. And so outside person can't see the person inside. So that is one-way see-through glass is also a Polaroid sheet. So Polaroid sheets, one application is they are used to decrease the intensity of light entering into the aeroplane or car or any vehicle. So they are used in window panes, right? So that is one of the application, right? Then this is also another sheet taken from some device. It's not from calculator. In many of the devices we use this, in displays we use Polaroid sheets. So you see how when it is rotated, the intensity keeps on changing, right? Okay. Then this is the laboratory available Polaroid sheets, very good Polaroid sheets. And if you go to any laboratory equipment supply shops, they will give Polaroid sheets. And it is fitted in a frame, in a circular frame. And if you keep on turning it from 0 degree to 360 degree, you will find that the intensity becomes maximum when the axes are parallel. When the axes are perpendicular, 0, because light is not allowed by one by one, it is blocked. Again, when the axes are again parallel, 180 degrees, 0, maximum light. Again, when the axes are 90 degree, that means 270 degree, again there is no light. So, and you know, the intensity doesn't suddenly decrease to 0. The intensity reduces, and when it is exactly perpendicular, it becomes 0. So now the intensity is maximum because axes are parallel. Now the intensity is going on reducing. When it becomes exactly 90 or 270, you get 0. So these are the best materials that we get in for practical demonstration. We get it in laboratory equipment shops. They are the very good Polaroid sheets. Chemical treatment, after chemical treatment, they produce some Polaroid sheets. Okay, so this is another Polaroid sheet. You see how it is rotated in front of another polarizer. Analyzer is rotated. So at one moment you get maximum light, another moment it blocks. Because the light coming out of the sheet, that the square sheet which is kept below, is polarized. When the axes are parallel, you get maximum light. When the axes are perpendicular, no light is obtained, because only the vibrations left by this square sheet are blocked by this sheet. So this is another way, and this is the best way of checking a polarized sheet. Suppose you have a cooling glass, that sheet of the cooling glass, Polaroid sheet. You hold it, suppose you have a tab or anything, hold it in front of the tab and turn it. When you tab or calculator or even mobile, turn it in front of the mobile, you will find that at one direction you don't see any light, because light coming from the mobile, that display of the mobile or tab, it is our computer, it is polarized light, because they are emitted from some materials, and there is a screen which polarizes the light. And if you have another analyzer, you can turn it and test whether the light is polarized or not. And when the axes are parallel, you get maximum light. When the axes are perpendicular, you don't get any light. So these things you can try at home. Or you can have another sheet of another eye in the lens, in the goggle, and you can try it. You can have two sheets, because you have two such sheets in one spectacle, right? In one cooling glass. Okay, so you can try with mobile also. You can try this cooling glass. You can turn it. At one moment, you see, don't receive any light at all, because the axes are perpendicular. The light allowed by this mobile are already polarized. You can turn this. You can do this very easily without removing this sheet at all. Okay, you need not remove the sheet. You hold it in front of the mobile, and you can do the experiment. Okay, now coming back to that point, how do you represent all these electric and magnetic fields? We represent electric and magnetic fields here, right? What is this electric field and magnetic field? Actually, light is made up of many electric fields and many magnetic fields. And whatever we represent by an arrow mark, it is a resultant of all the electric and magnetic fields. So now any vector, maybe a force, maybe a velocity, whatever it is actually the combination of many small vectors. So when we represent a vector force by writing an arrow mark in the board, that force may be the combination of many forces actually, but we are representing the resultant. For example, when some food particle is carried by ants, you see how the ants are carrying it. Are the ants pulling it in the same direction, all the ants, like as if we pull the cart, or as a child pulls a cart? No, it is pulled by many ants in many directions, right? But the resultant is in some direction, so that is why the food particle moves in one direction. See, these ants, some of the ants will be maybe pulling it in the different direction. You see, here you see, some of the ants, these are crazy ants, I can call them, because they don't know what they are doing actually. They are simply working, and they don't know where is the target, where that food has to be taken. Moreover, they don't know where they have to pull. Simply they are working. And you see, some of the ants are climbing the food and they are taking rest and playing there, right? They don't know that other ants are working, and that is a problem for the other ants. See, some of the ants are pulling it in the opposite direction also, but the food particle has to be taken here. So from a distance, we feel that this food particle is moving like this. But what is the condition here? One ant will be pulling it like this, another ant will be pulling like this, another ant like this, another ant like this. So many ants will be pulling it in different directions. Some ants will be climbing it up and making the things heavier. They don't know. So ants are supposed to be hard workers, but not intelligent. Now, so the food particle somehow moves like this. But this main vector, you know that this main vector that I have marked with the dark red is the combination of many vectors. I have shown only two here. But see how many number of ants are pulling. But remember that since the food particle is moving towards left now, most of the ants are pulling it like this. Otherwise, it would have gone somewhere else. Suppose some few more ants pull it in the perpendicular direction, it would have turned in this direction. Suppose some ants might have pulled it, more ants might have pulled it in this direction, means it might have turned to other direction. So always, most of the component vectors lie in the direction of resultant vector. That's why resultant is like this, right? In a meeting, what is the opinion of the most of the people, that will be the decision of the meeting. In the same way, so most of the ants will be pulling it like this. That is why the resultant is like this. But you will never find any component pulling it like this. Have you seen any ant pulling it like this? You don't find any ant pulling it like this. Suppose there was an ant pulling it like this in this direction, then the food particle might have gone like this somewhere else. So you can't get the component of a vector perpendicular to it, right? So there doesn't exist, no component of a vector exists in the perpendicular direction to it, right? There doesn't exist any vector, component of any vector in the perpendicular direction. Okay, so now coming back to this, that is why intensity doesn't become zero all of a sudden when you turn an analyzer. So when the polarizer and analyzer have axis parallel, you get maximum light. But the zero light occurs when they are exactly perpendicular, because these components can help you to see the light even though their axes are not parallel. So even when they are crossed like this, some amount of light can pass through. That is because of the component. So if you take light like this, moving in a particular direction, right? Then if I show an electric field vector like this, then that electric field vector is the combination of many small vectors like this. And there may be two vectors like this, its resultant is this one. But the result, this one may not be the resultant of only these two. It is the resultant of many vectors like this. But remember, as you move away from this to the 90-degree angle, the number of vectors which are the components of this will be weaker and weaker. The stronger electric fields are lying very close to this. That's why the resultant is here. So now if you place an analyzer, this is already polarized light, remember, this is already polarized light. So this electric field is actually the resultant of all these electric fields, and this is only the representative for all these electric fields. I don't have many electric fields like this. This is polarized light, remember, already polarized. That means this is the only electric field that I have, which is the resultant of many small, tiny electric fields. And similarly, if you come here, somewhere here, again the same thing occurs. If it is a polarized light, the resultant of all the electric fields present here will also be in this direction. That's why it is called plane polarized light. If you observe this point of the light, electric field is vertically above like this. Here also vertically above. Here also vertically above. All the electric fields are in the same plane. That's why it is polarized light, right? You don't get an electric field like this in this direction here. Which is the resultant electric field like this. Here also the resultant lies like this. Even though that resultant is a resultant of many components, but resultant electric fields lie in the same direction. That is why it is called polarized light. Now in this polarized light, now if the analyzer is like this, maximum number of components can pass through, because you know that in the direction of resultant electric field, the components are very close to each other. And if you go away from the resultant electric field, the components are very weak. That's why the resultant is here. If this component was very strong, the resultant would have been somewhere here, isn't it? So the components are very weak in this direction. Now maximum components pass through this, so you get bright light here. Now tilt this little bit. When I tilt this, the brightness goes on decreasing. Why? Only few components will start passing through this. So some components of this electric field will pass through this. You get less brighter light. If you still tilt this, you know that the component of this, as you move away, lying in the far away directions are very weak, and less amount of components will pass through this, and the electric field becomes still weaker. And when I hold it like this, again very weak electric field lines will pass the components of this, and again the light becomes lesser here. And when I hold it perpendicularly, you know that an electric field vector, resultant electric field vector, will never have any component perpendicular to it. You can't split this vector into perpendicular direction like this. That means its effect in the 90-degree direction is not at all found. That means nothing to pass through this. Intensity becomes zero. So that's how we can explain it. Of course, remember, this will not be asked for the exam, but you must know the very minute point over this. Don't be under the impression that I have explained it for the sake of exam. For the sake of examination, here only what is polarization, how do you represent the polarized light, and how do you represent a plane polarized light, and how to check whether a light is polarized or not, what is Moore's law, what is Brewster's law, only that much, you need not worry. But this idea will give you some confidence that I know about polarization very well, that's all. So you can remember the minute things also. Okay, so as you turn the analyzer little by little, only components will pass, but there is no component in the perpendicular direction. So net light here will be zero. So, and that is the beauty of this. Then what is Moore's law? You know that when an unpolarized light which contains electric field, and here you see, sir, whether this is the main electric field and whether these are the components. No. This is a main electric field which is a component of many electric fields. This is another main electric field. This is another main electric field. All the electric field lines are here. Electric field directions are independently resultant electric fields. So this is main electric field. This is the sum of many components. Similarly, this is another main electric field. So in a light, there may be many directional electric fields. That is why it is called unpolarized light. But if it contains vibrations only in one direction, then it is called polarized light. Okay, so this unpolarized light is passed through an polarizer. Then it will contain vibrations only in this direction. Now you see, you have electric field only in one direction, right? But remember, this is also a combination of many tiny electric fields. But you find that this electric field is lost. This one is lost. It is absorbed by the polarizer. Only parallel to its path axis are allowed to pass through. So this is a combination of small electric fields in different direction except perpendicular. Now you have an analyzer which is whose path axis is making an angle theta with the path axis of this. If you bring the path axis of this like this here, its path axis is making an angle theta. What is the intensity of light coming out of this? Only components of this will pass through, right? All the electric fields cannot pass through now because it is not parallel to its main vector. Okay, then if I is the intensity of light entering in unpolarized light, once the unpolarized light enters here, definitely the intensity becomes I by 2, and I'll take it this as I naught. From here Mohs law starts. So if I naught intensity light is incident which is polarized, a polarized light of intensity I naught is incident on an analyzer or a polarizer, whatever it is, because the only name is because of the position. If I had kept this one here, I could have called it as polarizer. This one here, analyzer. That's all. Analyzer is one which analyzes whether the light is polarized or not. Polarizer is one which will polarize the light. Okay, well, keep it here. And after that, polarized light is incident on an analyzer whose axis is inclined at an angle theta with the incident polarized light. Then, after coming out of this, intensity of the light coming out of the analyzer is I is equal to I naught cos square theta. The mathematical statement itself is the Mohs law. So when a light of polarized light of intensity I naught is incident on an analyzer whose axis is at an angle theta to the vibrations, electric field vibrations, then the intensity of light coming out of the analyzer is I naught cos square theta, where I naught is the incident polarized light, theta is the angle between the vibration and the axis of the crystal. But here it is 50%. Okay, you know it, right? So this one, okay. Next, this is just brush up of Brewster's law. Whenever light is unpolarized light, here you see the green waves, light green, dark green, red, everything. It's unpolarized light. When it is incident on a refracting material, the reflected light contains vibrations perpendicular to the plane. That means here you have to put dots, correct? This is only an animation. It contains vibrations perpendicular to the electric field vibrations perpendicular to the plane. Here there are vibrations parallel to the plane as well as few vibrations in the other direction also. Partially polarized, perfectly polarized, right? And this is unpolarized. And this should be the Brewster's angle. And you know this. This diagram is very important, and you must draw this very properly. And you have been given notes, you know it, you have it. Okay. And so this is incident ray and this is reflected ray. And this is Brewster's angle. At the Brewster's angle, reflected light and refracted light are perpendicular, and the reflected light is completely polarized. You see dots because vibrations are perpendicular to the plane. You see, you can imagine that. You can get the feeling that it is perpendicular. So perpendicular here, there may be vibrations perpendicular to the plane, but along the plane, most of the vibrations are present. This is partially polarized, but at this angle, of course, this is maximum polarized. And you can ask me, sir, then won't we get completely polarized light after refraction? Yes, possible. What you can have to do is pass this refracted light again through another glass slab. What happens? Again, when it passes through another glass slab, these will be absorbed. So by multiple refractions, that means making the refracted light again and again to pass through different glass slabs, what happens is the amount of polarization, degree of polarization becomes more and more. It becomes more and more perfectly polarized. These vibrations will miss out. At one stage, when it passes through many glass plates, a pile of plates means a group of plates, the outcoming light may be completely polarized. But in one refraction, it is not possible. You have to make it to undergo multiple refractions. And you know the formula here, IB plus R must be equal to 90, because this angle is already defined as 90 at the Brewster's angle or polarizing angle. The angle at which reflected light is completely polarized, refracted light is not polarized completely. IB plus R must be 90 degree, because this is 90, total should be 180. And IB minus R must be equal to deviation, that you know. that this is full angle is IB minus R, that is the angle of deviation, right? Then tan IB equal to mu or N, refractive index anyway. That is Brewster's law. Tangent of the Brewster's angle or polarizing angle is equal to refractive index of the medium which refracts light. This is the medium which refracts light. Okay, so that is the more important one. And applications of polarides, I didn't deal with the this in classroom videos, but this is very important. But it is there in the notes. One is to control the intensity of light entering into the room or window panes in vehicles, and to control the intensity of light in sunglasses, that is cooling glass, that is another one. In photography cameras and 3D movies. 3D movies, to watch 3D movies, if you go to a 3D movie, as soon as you enter the theater, you will be given a goggle, right? It is made up of Polaroids. And in 3D effect, you know, if an arrow is shot, you feel that it has come to very close to you, right? And if a ball is thrown in the screen, you feel that that ball is hitting towards you. You get that feeling. So you have to wear a goggle that is of Polaroid sheet, and to produce plane polarized light. Yes, this is one common application. Polarides are used to produce polarized light. That is quite common, and reduce the intensity of light. In 3D cameras, in sunglasses, you can write the application. Very important one. If you get a question like this for 2 marks, don't miss it, because you can write 2 applications, you will get full 100% marks, no doubt at all. They are used in sunglasses, they are used in window panes to reduce the intensity of light, they are used in to watch 3D movies, and etc. etc. Okay, now we will see 1 or 2 problems, and then we will finish it. We haven't worked out a problem in that resolving power and limit of resolution, correct? We will see that, and then we will stop it. An object is illuminated by a radiation of wavelength 540 nanometer, and this problem is available in your PDF that notes. So you need not worry, you need not take it down. An object is illuminated by a radiation of wavelength 540 nanometer, but you have a pen and paper, you have to solve it. Find the least separation between the 2 points if the angle subtended at the objective of the microscope is 20 degrees. What will be the separation if the object and the objective are immersed in water of refractive index 4/3? Did you understand what is given in this problem? Unless you remember the resolving power or limit of resolution of a microscope, you can't understand this. Find the least separation between the 2 points. What do you mean by that? Suppose you want to see the 2 very closely lying objects, you have to use a microscope. How much capability that microscope has got to show 2 very closely lying objects as separate objects? What is the minimum distance between them? What is the minimum distance at which it can show? I have given an example. Remember, a microscope can show up to 10 to the minus 6 meters, say 1 micrometer distance. Within the 1 micrometer distance, it cannot show separately. Another microscope B can show up to 1 nanometer, say. 1 nanometer microscope is better because it can show micrometer distance also clearly, nanometer distance also clearly. Now, how to write the formula for that limit of resolution? You know this one, right? So, microscope has got an eyepiece through which you see, objective which is towards the object, and here is a very small object. From the object, light enters into the objective lens, and that will be in the form of a cone, because the lens will be in the form of a circular plate, and all the rays entering into the lens will form a cone. What is the semi-vertical angle of that cone of rays entering from the object into the objective? That is beta. Semi-vertical angle. Now you see the problem. What is in the problem? Find the least separation between the 2 points if the angle subtended at the objective of the microscope is 20 degree. Be careful. Angle subtended at the objective of the microscope is 20 degree. Whether it is beta. Angle subtended at the objective of the microscope is 20 degree. It is the complete angle they are saying. Angle subtended by the rays of light at the objective is 20 degree. Means this angle whole is 20 degree. That means beta, if you want to substitute in this formula, you have to make it half. That is 20/2. That is 10 degree. Do you agree? Because we want the semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays entering the objective. So in this formula, N is the refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. Beta is the semi-vertical angle of the cone of rays entering the objective. Lambda is the wavelength of light used. Do you remember? Resolving power of a microscope can be increased by increasing the refractive index of the medium between the object and the objective. And such microscopes which use oil between the object and the objective to increase the refractive index, thereby increasing the resolving power. And such microscopes are called oil immersion microscopes, and decrease the wavelength so that we will have more resolving power. Such type of microscopes are called ultra microscopes, which use ultraviolet light to illuminate the object so that wavelength is less and resolving power is more. And nowadays we have electron microscopes which use a beam of electrons which have very, very less matter wavelength, de Broglie wavelength we call it. You are going to study it later. So they have very least wavelength. The electrons behave like waves and particles also behave like waves, and their wavelength is very less, and such microscopes have high resolving power. So lambda is the wavelength of light, beta is the semi-vertical angle, n is the refractive index of the medium. Now coming back to the problem, wavelength is given, coming of light, wavelength of light coming from the object, half angle you have to reduce it to 10 degree. Then what will be the separation of the, this is the next part. What will be the separation if the object and the objective are immersed in water of refractive index 4/3? What is the minimum distance between the two objects so that they can be seen clearly in the microscope? If this is done, that means if a medium of refractive index 4/3 is introduced, that means in the beginning it was air, next it is introduced. So this is the second part of the problem. What will be the separation? From there onwards, it is the second part of the problem. For the first part, you have to take refractive index equal to 1. What will happen if it is immersed in a 4/3 medium? That is different. So we will do the first part by taking refractive index as 1. So formula is this one. The minimum distance between the two objects which appear just resolved when seen through a microscope. This one. Okay. So I have written it here. D minimum is equal to 1.22 lambda by 2n sin beta. What is the beta? 20 degree by 2, because it is the semi-vertical angle needed. They have given full angle. Beta is 10 degree and lambda is 540 nanometer and n is 1. Why? Because in the beginning it is 1. Then what happens when 4/3 is introduced in this gap? So oil immersion microscopes are the microscopes where the medium between the object and objective is filled with a higher refractive index medium. Okay. Now you have to substitute this. 1.22 lambda 540, isn't it? It's not 550. It should be 540. Okay. Something gone wrong here. Okay, let it be. 540, you correct it. Into 2n, 2 into 1, sin beta, sin 10. Okay. 1.22 lambda by 2n sin beta. Beta is semi-vertical angle, 10 degree. Correct? No problem with this. Now what is sin 10? If you go to the logbook, sin 10 is here, 0 minute, sin 10 degree. 0.1736, that is enough. And this logbook contains 5 digits after a decimal point. Actually, our logbook gives only 4 digits, but let it be. 0.1736. So we will substitute 0.1736. So this is 540, it should be 540 nano and sin 10. Sin 10 is 0.1736. Okay. And the minimum distance, if you substitute this sin 10, you will get it as 1.889 something. I have written it as almost 1.9, right? 1.88 something that you will get. You check it using the calculator, and if there is a 2 deviation in the answer, okay, tell me. I think there may not be any much deviation in the answer. I have checked it once. 1.89 into 10 to the power minus 6 meter. What is the meaning of this? Now we got this answer, correct? What is this minimum distance? They have asked you to calculate the minimum distance, least separation between 2 points. That means if the distance between 2 points is 1.9 micrometer, this microscope can show them separate objects. If the distance between the two objects is less than 1.9 micrometer, this microscope shows them as single object because it cannot separate them. That is the minimum distance. If the distance is 2 micrometer, no problem. 2.1 micrometer, no problem. This can show it well separated, no problem at all. This is the minimum distance needed between the two objects or two parts of a an object. For example, in a virus, the distance between two parts, it should be at least 1.9 micrometer so that you can see that part clearly. Otherwise, you can't see that. So this is the minimum distance. That is the meaning. Okay. Now the later part. What will be the separation of the object if the object and objective are immersed in water of refractive index 4/3? If you immerse here a medium of refractive index 4 by 3, will you get a better minimum distance? That means still less than this. Can this, because you know, the limit of resolution must be as small as possible. Resolving power should be as large as possible. You know it, right? My microscope should show even very close lying objects as separate object. Then it's a better microscope. So can you decrease the minimum, d minimum by increasing n? Yes, possible. Now we have substituted it as r. Suppose it is 4 by 3. What you have to do? See, all the terms are same. 1.22 lambda, 2 beta, everything same. N was 1 last time. Now you have to replace it as 4 by 3. That's all. So shall I divide this answer by 4 by 3? That is all needed. So what I can do is divide 1. So now the minimum distance that can be seen between the two objects, which can be seen clearly, is 1.9 micrometer divided by 4 by 3. So when the object and the objective are immersed in a medium of refractive index 4 by 3, this is the case, or into 3 by 4. Answer is 1.425 into 10 to the minus 6 meters. I think there may not be much deviation in the answer since I have taken 550 instead of 540. Most probably there may not be much deviation. Okay. This is the answer. So check it. So now what happened? Sorry, whether it has become better? Yes, definitely. Last time that microscope was showing only 1.9 micrometer distance objects as separate. Now it can show even 1.425 micrometer. They can also be seen well separated. Not only 1.9, even 1.4. Okay. Yeah. We'll go to the next problem. Diameter of the objective of a microscope is 1.2 meter. If the wavelength of light used is 546 nanometer, calculate the limit of resolution of a telescope. So the use of all these problems is, working out all these problems will make you to remember the formula forever. If you just dryly try to by heart the formula, you won't remember it forever. So try to work out problems in that. Diameter of the objective of the telescope is given 1.2 meter, capital D. If the wavelength of light used is given, calculate the limit of resolution of a telescope. You know, for a telescope, limit of resolution is not the minimum distance. It is the minimum angle subtended at the eye by the two objects, which are seen clearly separated. Okay, you know that in a telescope, there is a big lens, which is objective towards the object, not nearer to the object, it is towards the object. The lens is not nearer to the object, it is towards the object. So diameter of that lens is d, and the minimum angle subtended so that they can be seen clearly is 1.22 lambda by d, and the resolving power is d by 1.2 lambda. Of course, a is the radius that you can study later, 1.22 lambda by d. So directly substituting, that's all. And lambda is the wavelength of light. So you know how to increase the resolving power of a telescope? By taking a objective of larger diameter. But you can't change lambda, remember, because you have to receive the light coming from a distant object. Telescope is an instrument used to view distant objects. So whatever the light comes from them, you have to receive it. You can't change the wavelength. Whereas in a microscope, below the amoeba, you can put one more light and you can illuminate it with the different ultraviolet light or so. So you can decrease the wavelength, but here it is not possible. Okay. Diameter of the objective of a telescope is 1.2 meter. If the wavelength of light used is 546 nanometer, calculate the limit of resolution of telescope. So d theta, capital D is given, lambda is given. Now this time I have substituted correct lambda. So no mistake from my side. D theta is equal to 1.22 546 nano by 1.2, right? 1.22 lambda by d, capital D is 1.2. So if you calculate it, you will get this one. It is the minimum angle subtended at the eye by the two closely lying objects which are seen just separated. That means this is radian, SI system. So what do you mean by this answer? I hope you can calculate it using calculator. The answer, the meaning of this answer is, if two objects, whatever they are, whether it is the 2 points on the moon, whether it is the 2 points on the star, or whether it is two stars which are very close, whatever it is, if they subtend an angle of this much, you can see them separated in a telescope, in that telescope. If the two objects, when you take two rays of light from the objects and bring them to the telescope, if those two rays make an angle of 555.1 into 10 to the power minus 9 radians, you can see those two objects as separated objects. If those two objects subtend an angle less than this, they cannot be seen as separate objects. if they subtend an angle more than this, you can see them well separated, no problem. So this is the minimum angle they should create in this telescope, so that you can see them well separated. You know, for an eye it is 1 minute, but here it is so many radians, still less, very less. You convert 1 minute into radian, this will be much lesser to that. Okay, so 5.55 into 10 to the power minus 7. You can donate 10 to the power minus 2 to this. I have written this answer because in that answer given in that sheet, this answer is given. So this can be converted into that answer. Okay. One more problem. Last one. Please bear with me. And here we will stop wave optics. A ray of unpolarized light is incident on a refracting medium of refractive index 1.732. So we are incidenting an unpolarized light to a medium of refractive index 1.732. What is the deviation of the ray if it is incident at polarizing angle? What may be the deviation? You know that at the polarizing angle, the reflected light is completely polarized, and reflected and refracted rays will be perpendicular. So recall all those things. How to recall them? See, okay, tan IB is given, right? Refractive index of the medium is tan IB. So what is IB? That I can get ready. Refractive tangent of the Brewster's angle or polarizing angle is equal to refractive index of the medium which reflects light. So tan IB is equal to root 3. 1.732 is root 3. So what is IB? IB is 60. So we have got IB. IB is ready. Now you know this one, right? When the unpolarized light is incident at the Brewster's angle or polarizing angle, reflected light is completely polarized, refracted light is partially polarized, but this angle, they will be perpendicular. Then IB plus R is equal to 90 degrees, and deviation angle, this one, deviation from the original direction, how much this ray has bent. Deviation angle is equal to IB minus R. So IB plus R is equal to 90 degree, because remaining 90 is occupied here. This is total 180. And IB minus R is equal to D. That is a old principle, right? It is a ray optics principle. This total IB, because this IB, this straight line, this original direction straight line. So opposite angles, IB. Remove R from it. Then angle of deviation. From the original direction, how much it has bent. D is equal to IB minus R. So that is written here. And tan IB equal to mu. Tan IB equal to mu is already applied. Tan IB is equal to 1.732. Tan IB is equal to root 3. IB equal to 60. Tan 60 is root 3 by 2. Now we will write that formula. IB plus R is equal to 90. IB minus R is equal to D, right? IB plus R is equal to 90. IB minus R is equal to D. Substitute it here. 60 plus R is equal to 90. One equation. 60 minus R is equal to D. Add it. R flies off. Only D will remain. 120. 120. R minus R 0. 90 plus D. So you bring this 90 here. D is 30. Finished. Right? 60 plus R is 90. 60 minus R is equal to D. 120 is equal to 90 minus D. 90 plus D. I am adding. Minus R plus R gets cancelled. So 120 minus 9 is 30. That is D, that is angle. So I have covered everything in this problem. One problem, tan IB equal to mu, this formula and everything. So 1 mark, 2 mark problem may be asked for even theory exam, right? Because there is a chance, there is a rule that you can ask problems in 1 or 2 marks questions also. Very simple one. Okay, but you must be acquainted with all these ideas very clearly, shouldn't forget it. But this is a 3 mark question also for deriving tan IB equal to mu. That is finished. Okay. Now, just I want to remind you that in the previous one of the class, I have taken finding the which fringe of 700 nanometer and 750 and 900 coincide. I divided 750 nanometer and 900 nanometer clearly this time, but I made a special mistake. I didn't write nano as 10 to the power minus 9, so it should be 10 to the power minus 9. I have given it in the WhatsApp group, but try to correct it. It should be 10 to the power minus 9. Since it gets divided, I am lucky. Thanks for the students who have identified this. Unknowingly, when I am dealing with the class, I am having some more things in the brain. Sometimes I am looking into the camera, whether camera has finished its memory, whether power is in the camera or not, whether I am within the range in the camera or whether I have gone out of the range. With all this in the mind, we write something different here. So you have to correct it. And another mistake is here. I told that for the third dark fringe, distance is 2.5 beta. 6th dark fringe, it is 5.5 beta. 11th dark fringe, 10.5 beta. By saying so, I have written the distance of the third dark fringe as 3.5 beta. It should be 2.5 beta. And the answer, you will get it correct, what is given in the book, right? That PDF book, right? So this should be 2.5 beta. So hand and brain doesn't move together sometimes. Hand does its own and brain does its own. So sometimes correlation combination will be lost. So that's the problem when we have too many things to be managed. Okay, let it be. You can correct it. So thanks for watching it, sir. It is enough, sir. We have been fed up, sir. Okay. So thanks for watching this video. We have just brushed up whatever is in polarization and with three problems. But remember, there are many problems in that PDF book I have given. Try to do them completely so that it becomes easier and you can remember formulas, you can remember the theory, and whatever the work you do now when you are free, that will be more helpful once the classes start. You see, if you are very serious, then you can prepare a lot for entrance examination and other things during the class hours. Definitely. And even if I just complete two more chapters or so, because next coming chapters are not very long and not very tough. They are very, very easy chapters. So after completing one chapter or two chapter, I will give you some entrance exam classes also for free. No money is needed for that. And I will give you some links, some question papers. You can follow it up also. So this is the best opportunity that you have got. Hope you will use it. So that is the best reward you can give to the teacher. You do the work, you follow it up and find out the mistake and show it to us. More the mistakes you find it out and show it to us, that is the best reward you can give us. And ask the doubts. Please use these things. Don't be under pressure, because I don't say that you have to watch for hours and hours in a day. Just for 45 minutes or 1 hour maximum. Many students are doing it, so that is an inspiration from me. But okay, so we will continue the same type of classes in future also. Thanks for watching this class. Thank you, and we will meet in the next class with the new chapter called Dual Nature of Light, right? So very good theory and very good interesting connections between intensity of light, energy, frequency and all. So new concept. So you will forget all the things what you have studied, ray optics and everything. Forgetting in the sense, keep it aside. We will go for the new one, and that is the dual nature of matter. Okay, with that we will come to the next class. Thanks for watching, and thanks for spending time with me. Thank you.